In management matters, a watershed moment for shared services. Last month, top officials from the Obama administration and industry met at the Partnership for Public Service. Their goal was to improve the implementation of shared services across government. Joining me with the latest is John Marshall, founder and CEO of the Shared Services Leadership Coalition. John, the term shared services will strike most of our viewers as pretty vague. What exactly does it mean, and how do shared services apply to government?
It's a business model for how you manage typically back office functions like human resources and financial management, acquisition and IT that are common to a large number of organizations. In the government, every agency practically has its own HR shop, its own financial management shop. But the idea is, with today's technology, not every agency needs to have its own. So you can share those resources. You can consolidate and skinny down the back office into a smaller number of shared service organizations which serve multiple agencies with common standardized services and save lots and lots of money.
Now, earlier I mentioned a meeting at the Partnership for Public Service. Dave Mader from the Office of Management and Budget rolled out a big plan for shared services. What does that plan spell out? Give us the basics.
The plan is a new governance structure. In the past, shared services, it's been around for a long time, and every administration since the Reagan years has embraced it in one way or another. And the way it's managed has changed from one administration to another. So Dave is trying to institutionalize some governance capabilities in the Office of Management and Budget and GSA to make more standard or more common or to harmonize the way different business lines of shared services are managed across the government. The way the services are acquired, the way standards are set and measured, performance is measured, and those kinds of basic policy setting and implementation oversight functions.
Now, John, this issue has momentum in large part because agency budgets are tight. How much money can shared services save government? Where do those savings go?
The Partnership for Public Service had a shared services roundtable last year that reported out almost $50 billion in potential savings from that consolidation across common back office functions. And what happens with the savings, of course, depends on how you keep score and how you realize them. It requires some tough decisions to consolidate organizations down. There are savings in IT and savings in labor. And if they're saved, some of that could go to deficit reduction, some could go to mission enhancement. The Leadership Coalition thinks some of that ought to go as incentives back to agencies to take the plunge and move forward in shared services, because it's not something that agencies are generally incented to want to do by themselves.
Now, you wrote about this issue in a recent op-ed. I'd like to read an excerpt. In the past, shared services have been managed in an ad hoc program management structures that change from one administration to another. Frequent changes have prevented critical government's capabilities from taking root, and implementation efforts have lagged and wandered. Now, John, it's selection season. A new administration will take over about 14 months from now. That means new priorities and a new agenda. How can our elected leaders make certain that shared services doesn't fall through the cracks?
That's a great question, and there are two ways that we can go about that. One is we're working through transition initiatives. A lot of the good government organizations around town are in the process of putting together management agendas and technology agendas for the next administration, whoever wins to consider. These are bipartisan or nonpartisan groups, and we're deeply involved with those groups in building support for continuing shared services. But the other and more lasting way to do this is to advocate legislation. And that's why the Shared Services Leadership Coalition was founded, because we think it's important that these changes be institutionalized in law so they have staying power to bridge one administration after another.
John Marshall, founder and CEO of the Shared Services Leadership Coalition. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Morris.